In the small village of Umuahia, everybody knew Obina. Ah, Obina, he was the village thief. If your prize-winning yam disappeared from your barn, you would just shake your head and say, "It must be Obina." If a fat chicken went missing from its coop, the women would hiss, "Obina has struck again!" But the funny thing was, nobody really hated him. He was a mischievous spirit, not a wicked one. He only took what he needed, never more. Sometimes, he would even leave a small, funny gift behind, like a strange-looking stone or a wild flower. The villagers saw him as a naughty child they could not get rid of, a small problem they had learned to live with. The most important thing in Umuahia was not the chief's palace or the bustling market. No, it was the Ibi. The Ibi was the village deity, a small, ancient statue carved from the dark wood of the Iroko tree. It was not just a piece of wood, it was their protector, their guide. The Ibi had been in the village for as long as anyone could remember, passed down from generation to generation. The elders said it held the spirit of their ancestors, watching over them and ensuring the rains came on time and the harvests were plentiful. Everyone, from the smallest child to the oldest elder, respected the Ibi with deep reverence. Once every year, during the New Yam Festival, the entire village would gather at the shrine where the Ibi was kept. They would dance, sing, and offer the best of their yams to the deity. It was a time of great joy and celebration, a moment to thank the Ibi for its protection. The shrine was a sacred place, guarded day and night by chosen men. Nobody dared to enter it without permission, and the thought of touching the Ibi without the priest's blessing was a taboo, a terrible crime against the land and the ancestors. It was the heart of the village, the one thing that united them all. But Obina was different. He saw the world in his own way. While others saw a powerful deity, he saw a piece of wood that received more attention than the hungry children in the village. He watched the grand offerings of food and wine at the shrine and wondered why the gods needed so much when people had so little. He saw the fear and respect in the eyes of his fellow villagers, but he did not share it. To him, the Ibi was a symbol of something he could not understand, a puzzle he felt a strange urge to solve. This curiosity would soon lead him down a path no one in Umuahia could have ever imagined. The night Obina decided to act was dark and moonless. A heavy rain had just fallen, leaving the air thick with the smell of wet earth and silencing the usual chirping of crickets. This was the perfect cover. Obina moved like a shadow, his bare feet making no sound on the muddy ground. He knew the guards at the shrine would be sleepy and seeking shelter from the dampness. He was not just a thief, he was a clever observer. He had watched the guards' routine for weeks, noting when they changed shifts and when their attention was at its lowest. He felt a strange mix of fear and excitement in his heart. He reached the shrine, a simple mud hut with a thatched roof, standing silently in the center of a small clearing. As he predicted, the two guards were huddled under a small lean-to, their heads nodding with sleep. Obina crept past them, his breath held tight in his chest. The entrance to the shrine was covered by a heavy animal skin curtain. He gently pushed it aside, slipping into the darkness within. The air inside was thick with the scent of incense and old wood. A single palm oil lamp flickered in a corner, casting long dancing shadows on the walls. His eyes quickly found what he was looking for. The Ibi. The deity sat on its altar, small and imposing in the dim light. It seemed to stare at him, its carved eyes holding the wisdom of centuries. For a moment, Obina hesitated. He felt a shiver run down his spine, the weight of the village's belief pressing down on him. Was he really about to do this? To steal the very soul of his people? He thought of his sick mother, her cough getting worse every day. He thought of the village herbalist shaking his head, saying only the rarest herbs from the forbidden forest could help her. This thought gave him the courage he needed. With a deep breath, he reached out and lifted the Ibi from its pedestal. Wrapping the sacred statue in a piece of old cloth, Obina tucked it securely under his arm. It felt heavier than it looked, not just in weight, but in meaning. He slipped out of the shrine as silently as he had entered. The guards were still dozing, unaware that their village's heart had just been stolen from under their noses. As he disappeared back into the darkness of the village paths, Obina did not feel like a triumphant thief. Instead, a heavy sense of guilt began to settle in his stomach. He had crossed a line, a sacred boundary, and he knew that when the sun rose, Umuahia would be a very different place. The next morning, the village woke up to a piercing scream. It was the high priest, Mazi Okoro, who had gone to the shrine for the morning rituals. His cry of, "The Ibi is gone! Our Ibi is gone!" echoed through the quiet village, waking everyone from their sleep. People rushed out of their huts, confusion and alarm on their faces. They gathered at the village square, their voices rising in a panicked buzz. The news spread like wildfire. The Ibi, their protector, their sacred ancestor, had been stolen. It was an unbelievable, unthinkable act. How could this happen? Who would dare commit such a terrible sacrilege? The chief and the council of elders quickly assembled. Their faces were grim, etched with worry and anger. The guards who were on duty at the shrine were brought forward, their heads bowed in shame. They could not explain how the thief had slipped past them. The villagers' fear soon turned to anger. Shouts erupted from the crowd. "This is a bad omen," one woman cried. "The ancestors will curse us," another man wailed. The finger of blame was pointed everywhere and at everyone. Suspicion fell on neighboring villages, on lone hunters, and on anyone with a grudge. But in the back of everyone's mind, a single name began to form: Obina. It had to be him. Who else was so bold and disrespectful? Who else in Umuahia moved with such stealth? The villagers formed search parties, their initial shock now fueled by a desire for justice. They searched every barn, every hut, and every corner of the village. They called out his name, their voices a mixture of anger and a strange kind of plea. "Obina, show yourself! Return the Ibi!" they shouted. But Obina was nowhere to be found. It was as if he had vanished into thin air, taking the village's spirit with him. The sun climbed higher in the sky, but a dark cloud of despair hung over Umuahia. As the day wore on without any sign of Obina or the Ibi, a deep sadness settled over the people. The usual sounds of the village, children laughing, women chatting at the stream, men mending their tools, were replaced by an eerie silence. People spoke in hushed, worried tones. They felt vulnerable, exposed, as if a protective blanket had been ripped away from them. They had always relied on the Ibi for comfort and security. Now, with it gone, they were lost. They realized that their faith was not just in a wooden statue, but in each other and their shared traditions. The theft had shaken the very foundation of their community. 3 days passed, and the village remained in a state of gloom. Then, just as hope began to fade, Obina appeared. He did not sneak back in the dead of night. He walked into the village square in broad daylight, looking tired and frail. He was not alone. In his arms, he carried the Ibi, unharmed and still wrapped in its cloth. The villagers who saw him first gasped, and soon a crowd gathered around him, their expressions a mix of relief, anger, and confusion. They did not attack him. They simply stared, waiting for an explanation for the chaos he had caused. Obina walked straight to the chief's palace and knelt before the elders, placing the Ibi gently on the ground. "I am the one who took it," he said, his voice clear but heavy with regret. A murmur went through the crowd. The chief, his face like stone, asked the question on everyone's mind. "Why, Obina? Why would you do this to your own people?" Obina looked up, and for the first time, the villagers saw not a mischievous thief but a desperate son. "My mother," he began. "She was dying." The herbalist said only the sun-kissed leaf from the top of the forbidden mountain could save her. "But the journey is cursed. The ancestors protect that mountain." He explained his desperate plan. "I did not steal the Ibi to sell it or to disrespect it," he continued, his voice trembling. "I took our protector with me to protect me on the dangerous journey. I believed that if our deity was with me, the evil spirits of the mountain could not harm me. I climbed the mountain, I found the leaf, and I returned. The Ibi kept me safe." He then reached into his pouch and pulled out a vibrant, glowing leaf. "I have made a tea for my mother with this. She is already breathing easier." The crowd was stunned into silence. They had expected greed or malice, not a desperate act of love. The village was faced with a difficult choice. Obina had committed the worst possible crime, but his reason was not selfish. He had not disrespected the Ibi. In a strange way, he had shown the ultimate faith in its power. After a long deliberation, the chief stood up. Obina was punished. He was ordered to serve the shrine and the high priest for 1 full year. But he was also forgiven. The villagers learned a powerful lesson that day. They realized that their community was not held together by a wooden statue, but by the bonds of love and compassion they had for one another. The Ibi was returned to its shrine, but now it represented not just the ancestors, but also the surprising strength found in a thief's desperate love for his mother.